Hi, guys. Hope everybody's doing good now. Wow, everybody's on here. Silvershire, hello there to Newburgh, Indiana. Cool. Jeff, hello to Newfoundland, Canada. Oh, I hear you. Silvershire. Oh, yeah, let's see here. Hello to Columbia, South Carolina. Bucky, hello there. Well, now, hold on. The actual Tops tracker actually works real good as a processing knife for fleshing tool and etc. I've talked about that, but as a bushcraft shelter builder, it's not my first choice. But it works really good, for a meat processing or fleshing tool and things like that. It works really good once you understand that curve in the back perfectly fits to flesh hides and stuff with. But it's not a great bushcraft knife, in my opinion. So. Gary, hello there. Hippo, good evening. Ravenswood Survival, hello there. Okay. Kodak, hello there. Randy Robbins, hello there. Everybody's on. Bear's in the house. Everybody's in here. Fishing Golf, hello to Illinois. Gary Graham, hello there. 50 degrees in Benson, North Carolina. Awesome. It's 59 here in Alabama. Rat Williams, hello there. John Loudermilk, good evening, brother. Outdoor, hello to Austria. Thank you very much. I'm doing well. Prepared for, doing really good. Adirondack, hello there. Hello to Missouri. Bucky, hello there. Bucky 1836. Adirondack, hello Wade. Hello to Chris and Rob in Southwest Ohio. 31 Southwest Ohio, cool. Okay, I will explain the haversacks all in a minute. Good news and bad news, but I got good news to tell everybody. War Donkey, hello there. Oh yeah, I hate it when YouTube or Facebook or whoever decides, oh, we're going to change things. It's like, ah, I'll give you the updates, all the stuff that I've been able to figure out in the last few days. Charles Martin, good evening. Richard, hello there. Gray Wolf, you have not missed very much. I just started talking. Less than 4 minutes, so you're still in there. Baton Rouge. Yeah, that neck knife looks really good. Ken Albridge, hello there. Yes, Kent, there is a way to improve the old Mausers. It could be a 93, a 95, a 96, or a 98 pattern. And yes, they do make better sights that can go on to it. Let me see, where was I at? Hudson Bay Axe. This is something I picked up at Georgia Bushcraft. It is a council tool flying fox. I mentioned this in a video the other day. I was very interested in this. And that is one of the German axes right there. That is a Hiko work axe that I've had for quite a while. And yes, I've been lazy. I have been on the go, and I just in the last couple of days got a little breathing space, but it's just been go, 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 go. And I need to do a complete clean in the study, get everything back organized, and put it into where it goes. I have pulled stuff out and pulled stuff out for so many projects. Gray Wolf, let me see. Okay, got that. Okay, outdoor. No updates since September 19th. Ugh. Okay, we're gonna do them. All right, let me. Everybody's here, so let's do all these updates and bring y'all up to speed. One, they got the roof on my house finally. So my house is at the stopping stage at the moment. I got some ceiling work to do on the inside. That will be starting after Thanksgiving. So got that out of my hair. Two, my computer started doing all that crap in the middle of October again, of locking me out. It wasn't letting me get to emails or anything. And I wanted to go to this email, but it wouldn't accept the password I gave, which is the password I have wrote down and been using for 10 years. No, that's not the right password. And if you try to say, okay, I forgot the password, it wants to send an email to this other email that you don't have access to either. And so I was pulling my hair out, trying to dig my way back in here. And when I was leaving to go to Rewild Outdoors is when it all happened. And I've been just fighting my computer ever since. Well, I got somebody that knows more than me. And what they said was they had done an update and they may have shifted your computer to public instead of private. And so that's the reason it's the second you leave a page, it's logging you out of everything, which was an ungodly pain in the butt trying to do everything. I was having to create a new password on every channel I go to, like YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, PayPal, my emails. Every time you had to start from scratch and create a brand new password and go through all those processes to do it. And so they said, do this. And they walked me through going through. And sure enough, my computer had been set to public. So it thought it was a library computer and it was supposed to log out of everything and challenge everything. And I went in and shifted all that day before yesterday. And suddenly I'm able to get in my computer again. Okay. So that's a big update. Now, the haversacks and all like that. Here is the story of what has happened. I am discussing at this time the September run and the October run, not the end of the year run. Okay, the September and October. Good news, the September and October is now in the mail. It shipped out today. The September-October run left from Jay in West Virginia on September, I think it was the 15th or 16th, coming to me. Okay. That normally should take about a week to get to me. It sat for 4 weeks in Kentucky. It left West Virginia and went to Kentucky. We got the tracking number. We saw it's sitting in that facility. 4 weeks. So that was in the middle of October, early October, excuse me. It was September to October. Okay. I called up and got a hold of the postmaster, and Jay called up and got a hold of the postmaster and chewed his butt out about what's this delay. It keeps coming to you and just sitting there. Why? It left Kentucky and went to Philadelphia. It sat in Philadelphia for a couple of weeks, and then it showed up to me yesterday. So the September showed up physically to me yesterday at about 4 o'clock. I loaded it all up into the packages, took it to the post office today. And so everybody that was supposed to be for the September, it is in the mail right now to you. I shipped them all out. In fact, I have, and I'm not going to do it on air. I got to put this into my records anyway, because I always say this. There is the receipt for all your packages. That handled the ones that were for the October and the September. They're in the air right now, headed to you. May they be far better than getting to me. Now, the next question about what about the end of the year run, Blackie? I am having to refund that to everybody. One, because of this screw up, we're not shipping this way anymore. And two, because of a delay with the manufacturer to get to us the proper canvas. I use a wax ripstop canvas, and they normally have it. We put in the order, and they back ordered us. And so On Tuesday, I got definitive word that it ain't going to happen. So everybody that was doing the end of the year run, your money is coming back to you. I've already started doing refunds now out of my PayPal back to your account with a little note saying that it is a supply chain problem and that we will do a run as soon as we can get it in our hands. We got to have the canvas in order to make the dang haversacks. And they took the order, said yes back in September, and said it would be delivered by the middle of October. Well, it hadn't showed up yet. And this was supposed to be the run that would be delivering in the 1st of December. So there's no way that Jay can get it done in 2 weeks. It's impossible. And so I'm going to be refunding everybody for that. I apologize. I wish there was a different way as far as, but you're at the supply chain. They say it's shipped, you pay for it. It says it's got a delivery date and it ain't showed up yet to us on that end. Our packages, same way. He shipped it when he was, a week late. Okay, but it would have been here in time for me to get it out in September to everybody. Because as soon as it shows up to me, it's going the next working day to the post office. And I just got it yesterday, nearly 2 months late. So we're completely stopping everything. Like I said, I'm refunding everybody's money for the end of the year run. If you did the September, October, your bags are in the air to you right now. So you should have them by Friday or by Monday. Okay. That's where we're at right now. And we're going to be looking at a completely different way to ship because this ain't working. The U.S. Postal Service doing a 2 months to get us a box. It wasn't a huge box. It's a box like this. 2 months to get to my place. That's ridiculous in West Virginia. I know that the Pathfinder group, SRO, they've had to do a video talking about they were not going to be using the Postal Service up there for some similar reason where things were just disappearing into the ether and they're having to constantly redo the orders. And so, we're going to work out, I don't know why and how this is doing that into Kentucky, but it leaves West Virginia, goes into Kentucky, and it just sits there, And whenever we called and complained this time, it was sent to Philadelphia. I apologize. We're going to do the best we can. And once we get it worked out, we will do another run. But I've got to get a different way for it to be shipped. We're going to look at other ways to ship it and see what we can do. Sorry for all delay. It's on me. It's my fault. And I do apologize because I should have anticipated this somehow. And but we will do our best. Like I said, I'm getting your money back. It's coming back to you now for the end of the year run. The ones that were September, October, it's on the way to you. And once we get this ironed out, probably after the first of the year, we'll do another run. Oh boy. Now let me catch up. Number one Big Bear, hello there. Johnny H. Books, hello there. Oh, you don't want to know. Ken Albridge, I appreciate that, brother. You'd get it to us. What I think it is, it's probably just the factory, hadn't done a run of that canvas because they do batch runs. And for some reason, they may have not run enough of it. Or somebody may have bought a big order and it put them behind. We don't know. But they told us, put in the order. It was delivered by this date. And the date came and went. And we went and it said it's back ordered. It's coming. Well, we done pushed the time now to where we can't get it done in time. So I'm just going to rather make everybody wait. I'm going to send the money back. And once we get it in hand, because we done paid for it, once we get the canvas in hand, then I'll announce we're doing a run. So only a 63 pocket is safe to shoot indoors without ears. Okay. Okay, yours was a June run. And nothing since the shipment left New York. Have you checked with your customs and make sure there's no, because everything's gone crazy with tariffs. Make sure there isn't some hang up, because I had one, it was not to you, but it was to somebody else at the same time that I shipped to you. There was somebody else. I had to refund them because I think it was New Zealand, would not allow it to go to the country. Flat, no, you can't import it, period. Where I had shipped to that country many times. Stray Outdoors. Blackie, can we get a new kukri videos? Sure. I can do more kukri videos. I need to go back and revisit it. While we're sitting here, let me grab and just go ahead and mark down kukri videos. And you got what's coming up tomorrow. You get a Dutch oven discussion again, where I had not rammed home a point about Dutch ovens, and someone cracked their Dutch oven. And so I'm doing a video tomorrow talking about that. I've already done it, but I'll be posting it tomorrow. That'll be the Friday video. And then Sunday will be the cooking video with the Dutch oven that I've got coming out. Saturday, we are we'll have the barrel of the CVA project gun, and we're going to go through it and show all the little things we're doing for it. So that's Saturday. And then next week we will, oh God, I've got a couple of knife videos and a couple of things coming. So I'll just have to look and see which ones I've actually shot and got in the edit can yet. Yeah, 63 inside, Dragoon outside. Yep. Gray Wolf, I hear you. Mine was driving 18-wheelers and firing high-powered rifles and a lot of explosions. My eardrums are thick, and so I can still hear, but soft little sounds. My eardrums won't vibrate and I won't hear it. And some young ladies have such a soft voice. I see their lips moving, but I have to try to lip read. And I had a supervisor at one point. She was a native Hawaiian named Laureate. And I told her, you have to be looking at me when you talk, because if you turn around and start walking away from me, I can't hear anything because your voice is so soft. You have to be looking straight at me and enunciate a little bit more. Otherwise, I physically cannot hear you. It's not going to make my eardrums vibrate. And that's a lot of years of 18-wheelers. Oh, I hear you, William. Good. I hope the kukri works out for you. Always number 81, post Sunday. Cool. Gray Wolf, you got to have a curved sheath for it. A lot of those went in sideways and had a snap that came over and anchored it. The buffalo skinner, a lot of people don't get is, and this was something I had to teach to Dan Lutz, is it's really a fleshing tool. That curve, you run it backwards on a beam. So that curve is for fleshing. That's what the skinners were doing. Were fleshing the hides. The round cutting edge is just but it's really a fleshing tool is what it is. It works okay as a long draw cutter, but that's the primary use for it, was a fleshing tool in historic time periods. Okay, Bucky, glad you're back. No, I don't, Ken. I don't have a recipe for burgoo right off the top of my head, but Max of Tasting History, he's got one. I know he does, and he's got a lot of really good historic recipes on there. I hear you. My boss had a bad habit of talking while he's walking away from me, and you couldn't hear him because the air compressor was running. I had a lot of bosses that way. And I explained to them, if you turn and start walking away from me, I'm turning and walking away from you. I consider it null and void. If you got to say something to me, look at me, get my attention, and say it. If you turn and walk away, it means it ain't important. I will not be responsible. hang it up. Because if you look at me and I don't think it's important, I'm just going to turn around and walk. And then you'll understand how I feel when you turn around and walk away and start spouting orders and I can't hear you. You're just wasting your time and mine. So get up here, speak to me, and let's go. And they always hate it when I talk to them like that. But hello, Sean. Doing pretty good. Would you recommend a kukri as a standard tool for Alaska? Having not been to Alaska, I can tell you that one of the heavier chopping kukris will do anything that a hatchet will do. Plus, it makes a better draw knife. And up there in your frozen country, being able to strip that frozen bark off to get down to the wood would actually work a little bit better than it does with a chopping tool like a hatchet. So yeah, I think it'd work really well. If I was going there, I would definitely bring my kukri. Rusting from regular cleaning, I understand. Oh, cool. You got your 2-quart Dutch in. Awesome. No, I did not do a video on how the Spiller and Burr can swap cylinders like the Remington. It can, of course, it being a Whitney design. And actually, it was not Whitney. The greatest inventor you never heard of. He designed the Whitney. He designed the Remington Beals. Beals, that was it. Beals was his name. So he designed the Whitney, the Remington Beals, the old model Army Remington, the Remington 63 that we call a 58, were all designed by him, and there has been some speculation that the Rogers and Spencer definitely had influence from him, and the Spiller and Bird definitely was just a copy of the Whitney. So it's like Colt designed these, and Beals designed all the competition to it. So usually you name a competition to a Colt, and it's probably a Beals design. Striker, glad you made it back in. Thank you very much for the prayers. Why don't they make a Whitney Navy reproduction? They did years ago, and all it was basically was an iron frame or a steel frame of a Spiller and Burr with some minor little tweaks, and it didn't sell well, you know. And the Whitney was actually the #1 competition to the 51 Navy during the 49 gold rush and all like that. In the 1850s, the Whitney was the big competition to Colt. So, hard hat, I hear you, but I learned early on that when you see that manager coming at you and he's got that hard look in his eye and he's about to chew you out for something, if you flip the script on him and talk about, look, we're here to do a job, you know, I'm here to work. You're here to give orders. If you can't give your orders where I can understand it, we're wasting time. You need to stop wasting company time and get focused on what we need to do. And I just take over the conversation from the boss and turn it around like I was chewing him out for not taking care of what he needed to do. And then I'd say, okay, look, that's 15 minutes. It's enough time wasted. Now you get going and I got to get back to work. Now move. I got work to do. And employees would howl with laughter. And it got where the managers never wanted to come chew me out too much because they knew they're going to lose that argument. Of course, I was on a national debate team, so I could twist it around. The best one I got was I had a manager. He come up and he got in my face and he just chewing me up one side and down the other. I'm looking at him just as calm as I could be, like I'm, picking out a burger for lunch or something, and he's just and after, I mean, he keeps moving in further and further, I guess, trying to get a reaction to me, and he's probably no further than that from me. And he says, "You got anything to say?" I said, "Honestly, yeah, your mouthwash ain't cutting it, dude." Everybody hit the floor laughing. You know, he just didn't know how to handle that. Gary Brown. Gary Brown shipped today at, it's going to Sanford, North Carolina. It shipped today. You should have it on Friday or Monday or Saturday if you get delivery up there. But it arrived to me yesterday. I shipped it today. It is en route right now. And that was, hold on a second. Let's see. Because that's where I got you right there, Gary Brown. Sanford, North Carolina. Hold on a minute. I got to have my real eyes for this. Sanford, North Carolina. Get your pen ready. Tracking number 9505 5103 6347 5317 466710. There's your tracking number. Hopefully you will have it by Friday. Have to keep these, because you can write off your postage for a business. Woo! Now let's see, where was I? At a former job, I was pretty lucky. I was way back in the back of the factory where the bosses never went. I could have been working in a clown suit and they wouldn't have done it. I had a job like that where it was a 24-hour place, and I would come in to work at 4 a.m. The shift was 11 to 7, but I came in at 4 a.m. and then I worked till 1. And so when I came in at 4, all the managers for the night shift, they're back in the office. And then 4 hours later, 8 a.m., when new managers came on duty, I was gone to lunch. So they're running around like chihuahuas marking territory. Get this done, get that done, all that. By 9 o'clock, they're back in the office. They've done their barking for the day, and I'd show back from lunch. And finally, at like 12:30, there'd be a manager come back there. Is Blackie here today? Yeah. And I'd come around the corner. Yeah, I got 30 minutes left. What you need, boss? It's like I didn't exist. I could just walk through the place. It was great. Oh, yeah. Oh, cool. Glad Chris took my first shotgun deer. Awesome. Congratulations. Gathering plans. Okay. As it looks now. Okay. As it looks right now, we're setting up for a cold, wet winter. That means it's going to be oscillating back and forth. And that means I will move the date up. So don't quote me on this. I will make the final determination. But I'm thinking either the week of the 15th through the 21st of March or the 22nd through the 28th. That's what I'm thinking right now. But the next 2 weeks are going to tell the tale, because I'm going to see how this weather pattern sets up. If it sets up where it is doing that alternate, where it's going to be wet to cold, back and forth, I move it up into those weeks in March, because that way the winter is going to be relatively over. Usually by end of February, 1st of March, the cold weather is over, and we're just getting nights in the 40s, something like that, and daytime highs like 60 or 70. And so that's really good camping weather, and the mosquitoes ain't out yet. If I don't move it up into March than I risk of it being back in the beginning of April and it's 85 degrees and the mosquitoes have hatched. So right now, those are the two dates I'm looking at, and I'll make the final call in about 2 weeks, 2, 3 weeks, whenever it's 1st of December. If it sets up that pattern, it'll be then. If it changes like it did last year, where it started like this and then it flipped to a purely cold winter, I got to back it up because it'll still be nights in the 30s or 20s and with a lot of wind down here. When we make the transition from winter to springtime, you get a lot of wind down here. And I always shift it. I'm trying to hit that window. It can be a little bit of a challenge, but we'll do it. Why is the Howell 32 Smith & Wesson cylinder out of stock for my 49 pocket? I don't know, but I'm betting it's probably because he's doing limited runs. When you see something that you want and they got it in the box, but they never seem to have it in stock, contact the manufacturer and say, "Are you doing limited runs, or have you just decided not to make these anymore?" And a lot of times, by saying that, if they've got one that they ain't got enough to put out, but they got one, they'll normally offer it. On the other hand, if it's where we're not really going to make those anymore, you can stop wasting your time and go look somewhere else. I had something like that there was an engraved cylinder years ago for 51 Navy that I wanted. That was a Confederate engraved. It was a super rare. Had been right at the beginning of the war. There had been a famous one that somebody had made a copy of the 51 Colt. It didn't work out. They didn't go into mass production, but they had hand carved, engraved a cylinder, and this company out of Ohio was making a replica of that cylinder so you could make it look like this gun. And it was on their site forever, but it just simply never showed up. And finally, I contacted them and like that, and I said, "Is this something you're not going to make anymore, or whatever?" I've been looking for like 6 months every week checking this thing. And he said, "Yeah, we done it. We were going to go in production, but we've decided against it. They just hadn't taken it off the site so I could stop wasting my time." So you might want to do that. Oh wow, you got a Woodings Verona X for $12. Awesome. Justin, awesome, brother. Hello, Mountain Man Hairface. Glad you made it. I'm not sure why the chat cleared out earlier. The week of the 15th. Okay. Well, like I said, 15th through the go to March. There we go. Yeah, like the 15th to the 21st, 22nd. Which, of course, what I will say is, I always say that would be the 18th to the 22nd, and people are going to start showing up the weekend before. So if I say that date, they'll start showing up on the 14th and run through. So, but I'm leaning hard that way from what I'm seeing in the weather patterns and everything. I'm leaning hard more around starting on the 15th and running to the 21st in that week. That's what I'm looking at right now. If it changes, I will update y'all before I make the official announcement. Okay. When Starline started running 5070 again, you stocked up. Hard hat, how many of those 5070s do you have? Because Bear has a 5070 and he can't find brass for it. So y'all might be able to talk a little if you got an interest in letting a little of them go, because he's got a gun for it, but no brass. Can't find any brass. Awesome, Sir Stride. Glad it helped and you got it sighting in where you wanted it. Oh yeah, those little bitty short little Navy American North American Arm 22. They're loud. It's like a firecracker going off. Pam, yes. Hello, Miss Pam. You can bet they will show up early. Always, always, always. And you know, Pam, now Jonathan Frisbee is moving to Alabama. So he's going to be, he ain't got to drive far. He'll be just there. So now Chris will be the one that's got to drive a long way. Bunny hunting in the snows with a cabin ball. Awesome. Gray Wolf, that was my favorite thing to do in late January, early February. Go out and walk through the sage fields, because we ain't got snow, but we'd have heavy frost, and you'd have bunnies. They'd be sitting in the sun trying to warm up, and I'd have a 51 Navy or something like that, or a Spiller and Burr, or even a 1860 or whatever. And that was just my favorite way to hunt bunnies, was that way. Is Bud's Gun Shop legit for cabin ball, or can we what other stores can we shop? Dixie Gun Works, Track of the Wolf, Sportsman's Guide, Midway USA. All of those carry cap and ball revolvers. Yeah, that's the thing. The 5650 the same way. Need to buy stocking coffins. I hear you. Have you ever tried to load 4570 shot shell? Yes, I did. Saw some old Army issued loads for small game from 1870. Okay. Those were called Forager rounds, and they had smooth bore 4570s. And what that was where they were doing the conversions. And if you had a gun that just got rusted out real bad or whatever, they would ream it out and put a liner in it to make it a 45, basically a 410 shotgun. And they had full length 4570 brass loaded like a little shotgun. And if you really pissed off the first sergeant, you got handed the Forager gun, because you're out in the Great Plains and you got a gun that's effective to like 35 or 40 yards to go shoot jackrabbits and pheasants and whatever, when an Indian can nail you with a bow and arrow at 110 yards, and you got a gun that can only shoot 25 or 30. Nobody wanted to carry the Forager, but those were called foraging rounds. And yeah, I've loaded it for that, and I've loaded it before. I've used newspaper wadding as a simple way to do it. I put a small charge, about a half charge really, of what I would use and with a bullet in the 4570. Then put newspaper wadding down there to a depth about that much, about a half inch of paper wadding. Then I would put the shot in, and then I would, on the top, I would put cards. I would cut cards out of soda boxes, like Coca-Cola boxes, whatever, that you get your cans in. I would, because they're wax cardboard, and I would cut out. They make punch sets at Harbor Freight. I would punch out and just thumb press like two of them in there that was real snug, and then put just a drop or two of glue, Elmer's glue, around the top to seal it up. Comes out just fine, and it performs about like a 410 shotgun with a cylinder bore. Great for snakes and stuff, by the way. Oh yeah, 43 Spanish. Now you're getting out in the weeds, but yeah, good cartridge. The Virginia Bushcrafter. Good evening, sir. It was great to see you at Georgia Bushcraft. Wish we'd had more time to spend together. I had to get out of there fairly quickly. Yeah, Bear is interested in some of the 50/70 if you got a price. You want it, not a lot of them, but just a few of them at a price. He'd be willing to talk to you so he'd have it. A few to be able to, we can start out loading and shooting that gun. It's just, we got a mold for it. We got everything for it except brass, you know. And he wanted to try to do, found some other brass, but the question is, will it eject it or not? It's the right diameter, but it's 50 Alaskan, and that's got a 45/70 base on it. And so the question is, will it eject it or not? We're going to have to try that out and see if the ejector will catch it. Because it'd be one of the things you can close it and shoot it, but then you got to run a rod down and knock the brass out. A very elaborate single shot. Oh, cool. Found one in 3220. 3220s were great, small game guns, and you can shoot a whitetail with it or something like that, but its performance is very similar to the 22 Magnum in modern times. Yeah, Gray Wolf talking about getting stuff at sales and stuff. James Bender, we'd gone up to do the first Civil Wars class, and he was showing me some of his stuff, and he brought out this little bitty flintlock handgun, and we all thought it was a replica. And then once I really got looking at it and I got a strong light on it where I could see very clearly, it was an original Queen Anne from about like 1725, a little small officer's thing. It had a cartouche in the small grip of it, and it's one of the things you stuck a key in it and you unscrewed the barrel. And then you poured powder into the chamber, set the ball on, and screwed the barrel back on. And that's how you compressed it. It didn't have a ramrod. And it was a little bitty small flintlock gun. And he had an original Queen Anne and didn't realize it. He said he paid like $120 for it at a thrift shop up there in Southeast Ohio. And Southeast Ohio. And they didn't know it was an original Queen Anne. I don't know what an original Queen Anne's worth, but I can tell you it's worth a whole lot more than that. And the fact it has a regimental cartouche on it means this was some officer back, like French and Indian War and before time period that owned this gun. Might have been a battlefield pickup during the French and Indian War or the Rev War. So really cool piece of gear. You just never know what you're going to find when you start digging. Pipe smoker, awesome. Can I wear the Canadian Mountie hat if you wear the Scout cap? Sure. Dixie has one, yeah. Sanford Brown, hello there. Yeah, I hear you. I have over the years got to unload quite a few old muzzleloaders, both replica and original, because someone would find it at a garage sale or whatever and didn't realize it was still loaded. Um, I had somebody bring me a Zouave one time, and he said it's just a wall hanger. The barrel's been poured full of lead. I went, oh, okay. And so he wanted me to clean it up and, stuff like that. So I get it. And I ran the ramrod down. It went down about that far, went thunk, you know. And so I shined a bright light in it and I realized I was looking at the top of a Minet ball. Well, I had a puller. So I, lubed it up real good. We just filled the barrel full of kerosene and let it wick its way down, And I told him, did you ever try to put a cap on it and pop it? He said, no. I said, that's probably a very good thing. we pulled 10 mini balls, one stacked on top of the other, out of that barrel. That was about like 10 grains of powder and then a ball, 10 grains of powder and then a ball. Somebody probably at some thing, reenactment or whatever, where they're shooting a target or whatever, didn't know what they were doing, and probably just did like that with powder horn and rammed it, and it didn't go off. And so they just kept reloading it. That's probably saved them from the gun blowing up. But we pulled 10 mini balls out, and they were just stacked one on top of the other with a little bit of powder. And I told him, you don't have a wall hanger, you have a functioning Zouave now. You can actually fire it. And I cleaned it out, and I put like a 50 grain charge in it, ran a ball, one of the other balls I pulled, back down it. We stepped out in the back and aimed into my trap and pulled the trigger, and it fired just fine. So his eyes were about that big. So that's been standing in the corner for 5 years. I thought it was just a wall hanger. Nope. It's a replica, and somebody didn't know what they were doing with it. Oh no. Blackie, do you know where I can find ejectors for a high standard 16 gauge bolt action? I do not. Numerich gun parts would be my choice. Also, you could also contact Brownells. They're a gunsmith supply. And just contact them and say, I've got this and I'm looking. Do you guys have any idea of where parts could be found? And a lot of times they're aware of where, when a big manufacturer shuts down, where all the used part or the leftover parts go. And so they may have an idea of at least where to put you in touch with somebody to do that for you. I really like you doing the Cap and Ball series again. Thank you, Blackie. I'm glad to do it. I've always enjoyed it. It was just the political powers that be at YouTube poo-pooed. And that's the reason I had to back off of it. But the winds have changed a little bit. And so therefore I feel more capable of doing it without being punished for doing it. And there's been some changes at the corporate level in YouTube to where we can do this. And Mike Bellevue and a lot of the other channels, everything black powder and stuff, it's still a learning curve, but I'm going to try to do more. I'm planning on doing some with the muzzleloading rifle and the muzzleloading shotgun this year, and talking about some more of it. I only did like 1 or 2 videos of those, and I had to back out because they were slashing my monetization left, right, and center, and basically threatening to take my channel down because of it. Gun Parts America. I think you're correct there, Gray Wolf. Hard hat. Glad to help. I learned so much for the cap and ball stuff because I had several of them. I loved the guns, but there was so little out there about them back in the 70s and early 80s when I was getting into it. This was pre SAS and cowboy action. So you just had the Civil War guys, and they just shoot blanks. It was rare that they ever shot a live round except in some sort of competition. And so the vast majority of them weren't doing it. And so I would look at what Skeeter Skelton and Elmer Keith and Phil Spangburglar, Mike Ventrino, and them talked about doing stuff to a single action army, and I'd retro apply it to a cap and ball because it's the same type of action. And little tips and tricks, and I learned how to use them in the field. I knew these had been rugged, reliable weapons in the field. We fought a war with these guns, several wars, really. The bleeding Kansas, the actual Civil War, and the Indian Wars were cap and balls. It was only in the 1870s we really see the cartridge become the predominant, and not just a cap and ball with some cartridges thrown in. It became the predominant. And those guns didn't go away. They were just relegated to the poorer people who couldn't afford the cartridges. And there were people that were still going into really backwaters of the country where you couldn't get cartridges. They didn't have a railroad to bring cartridges, but they still had powder and ball, And so I was seeing actual home defense 1860 Army in the 1960s from a poor family that I was friends with. That was their home defense gun that had been his granddaddy's, then his daddy's, and then his. That was the only gun they owned, was an 1860 Army. So they can be very, very useful when done right. I don't know if Grouch has tried that blend. He loves Borkum Riff, and I've got a few favorites of my own, and I've got some from a good friend of mine that I'm going to be trying here this weekend. So, Andy Knight, hello to South Georgia. Wonder what melted into powder in Arizona in that kind of heat. I believe it. Mexican War, Texas Republic, correct. Okay, here's a question for you. What is something that doubles as a daily carry gun and a cool gun for the collection equality? For the collection quality. In a modern gun caliber, Browning high power. It's not a common, but it's very, very good and efficient. And of course, the classic 1911 in cap and ball, a 5-inch 1860 Sheriff model is, and I was driving an 18-wheeler with multi-million dollar, $4 million radar sitting on the back of it, and I had to go through the way station in New Jersey. And the officer jumped up on the running board and snatched my door open to see if I was wearing my seatbelt or not. And he saw the grip of a gun over here. Well, they had me handcuffed on the side of the road over there, and I'm 19 years old. And they called, the supervisor, and the supervisor got there, and the guy's holding the holster, hadn't taken it out yet. And when the supervisor got there, I asked him, said, "You want me to tell you how to pull the caps off of it?" He went, "Caps." I said, "Before you go any further in that paperwork, sir, you might want to pull that gun out and take a look at it." And he pulled it out, and it was a 5-inch Sheriff's model. And he knew enough to know that that's not a firearm. Not even in New Jersey back then. I don't know about now, but that was back then. And so, yes, I could have that. You can order it through the mail. A 5-year-old could order it. And it's not considered a firearm. And I'm not violating the law of New Jersey. And the fact that I'm under 21, I got a gun, means nothing in the state of New Jersey. He slapped it back in the holster and said, "Unhandcuff him." And the officer that had arrested me said, he said, "It's not a gun. It's a replica. It's a noisemaker. It's not a real gun." And he thought it was a blank revolver, but it was actually a fully loaded with Conical's 1860 Army. So, why are you carrying that? Because I'm in New Jersey. And I got a $4 million radar on the back. Yeah, they got insurance for that, but I ain't getting beat to death for somebody to steal my rig. So, back in the day. Thank you very much, Andy Knight, about the video I did on the curve bullet. Suspenders, yeah. I have a Howdah and 2 Walkers and Dragoon. You ain't carrying them daily. I carried a Walker cross draw on many campouts. And I even carried a 3rd model Dragoon because we were hunting. And I would carry that in the field all day long on a holster. And I've showed that plain brown holster that I bought in 1976 and will still fit all of my cabin balls. It is the holster. Some of them are loose, some of them are not. For the short barrel guns, I'd take a sock that I use for cleaning and wad it up and shove it all the way down to the bottom of the holster as like a plug. And then I'd drop the gun on top of it, so it hold it up to the right height for the strap to hold it nice and snug. And even one time carried a little cleaning kit down there in it. And that one holster would also hold a Walker or a third model Dragoon. So, in fact, it's the one that I carry my Whitneyville, yeah, my Whitney transitional Walker that's between the Walker and the first model. I've got one of those that was given to me by some wonderful people as a gift. And that's what I carry in the field with it. And I'm planning on carrying it this year. Me and Bear have been talking about doing some hog hunting on his land. And I want to get a hog with it, with a Dragoon. And the Rogers and Spencer, I did a video talking about it. Is nobody mentioned to me in all the write-ups and stuff I've ever seen, nobody ever mentioned that it's actually a Dragoon and would hold a 50 grain charge. Mine will hold a 50 grain charge with a bullet in front of it. And so I could use that as well. I might get around to using that. We'll see. Blackie, have you ever experimented with loading conicals backwards in a cap and ball revolver for wad cutter effect? Yes, and for extreme close range, it does do well, but it does not have any accuracy over any range. The wind pushing on that black back face gets to doing that, and so groups open up radically. But when you're trying to shoot a hog at point blank range out of a stand or something, yeah, it'll make a bigger slap because a flat face always does more of a hit. That's the reason the Keith bullets and all of that of later generations have that flat end on it for impact of a shock wave it causes in the tissue, makes a bigger wound and a better cookie cutter cut into it. So it makes a hole that blood can come out and bleeds them faster. But it doesn't, you can't shoot it very far. Good. Yeah, take a look and see if they've got the bolt that'll work. If that does, that might cure your problems. Oh yeah, you carried a 51 from 1822. Yeah. I never felt helpless with it. I'll put it that way. Oh yeah, I heard back when I was reenacting, I was carpooling to 150 Appomattox, and we all agreed that if we got pulled over, nobody was allowed to laugh as we listed all the guns. I hear you. Thank you very much. Farrell, if y'all get a chance to go to Colonial Williamsburg, they have in-house gunmaker gunsmith shop. Very interesting how they manufactured in the 1700s. Correct. There is a video you can find in YouTube that was made back in the 1960s when Wallace Gusler was there at Colonial Williamsburg. And I believe it's called The Gunsmith of Colonial Williamsburg. And it shows him building a gun. And when you go into the gunsmith shop there in Colonial Williamsburg, they got that gun hanging up on a pair of pegs. I have held that gun because 35 years ago in 1990, when me and my wife got married, we went on a honeymoon through 11 states and ended up going through Colonial Williamsburg. And I got to go into that gunsmith shop, and there was actually a guy in there that was doing, he was the reenactor or whatever for the gunsmith shop. And he actually took the gun down, and my wife has got a picture of me holding that gun. So it was a great, and I got to meet Wallace Gusler in my living history career. He was a great guy. I got to also meet Herschel House and his brother. And Herschel's ex-wife, Running Moon. And Herschel took a liking to Blackie's White Lightning. And so we became fast friends. Oh boy, Blackie, what is the best Christmas present that you ever received as a kid? Ooh. The best Christmas present I think I can say I ever received as a kid was Christmas of 1974. And my granddaddy um, gave me a 1903 A3 Springfield 30-06. I fed the family with that gun. I learned to target shoot long range with that gun. It really launched me onto a lot of great adventures because of that gun. So I would say that 1903 A3 was the best Christmas gift of material like that. And if it's something that's not a material thing like that, I would say that it was 1970 and Miss Free, an old black lady that was friends with my grandmother, for Christmas gave me a dozen yeast rolls that she had baked just for me. And so my grandmother made this chicken soup she would make for me when I was sickly, and I was a very sickly child, a young child. A lot of times they couldn't get me to eat anything else. I'd eat that soup. And so Granny made me that chicken soup, and Free made me that dozen rolls. And I remember that dozen rolls. And the fact that was about the time, it was not long after that Free passed away. And I remember that dozen rolls, you know. Things like that stick in your mind. It might be outside your range, but you seem like the guy who had a CB in your truck. Any chance of videos of the ins and outs of the CB radio? Oh boy, my knowledge is ancient, son. I ran a CB radio the whole time I was running 18 wheelers and stuff. I came off the road in May of '89, and I still played with CBs up to about 2000. So it's been 25 years since I did anything with CB of in depth. But yeah, I mean, I did a lot of it. And back in the pre-cell phone days, it was a way of communicating out there to the world, especially when you were broke down or something, way to holler for help and find out about road conditions and stuff. I'll think about it. I might get around to doing that. Oh, Blackie, have you tried out the new K-Bar Slabby? Got the full tang and everything. I've held one, and it looked really good. I haven't got to use one, but I've held one in my hand, and it looks really good. And I believe it is a good improvement. It really is. Cool. Yeah, you got to meet Wallace Kessler as well. He was a good guy. Hello, Christopher. Yep, you made it. Patriot Preacher. Bear, did you see his comment on 57 brass at Buffalo Arms Company? So be sure to check that, Bear. Jim Survival, good evening. Hardy, I hear you. You know, there are things that you don't think at the time that they're going to be, you know, mean that much to you. But I've got two quilts that me and my grandmother made when I was less than 5 years old, where she would poke the needle down and I'd be underneath and I'd pull the thread tight and poke the needle back up. Big old hanging uh, quilting rack. And we quilted quilts for the bed. And we weren't doing it for show, we were doing it for warmth. We'd cut squares out and sew them all together and iron stuff and then lay it out on the thing on the base and quilt and sew it all together. And I've still got two of those quilts after all these years. So little connection to me and Granny. Did you get snow? Not this first south, but they did have flurries about 3 hours north of me. Washburn Billy, I understand. Radio's made easy. Hey, thanks, Kent. Yeah, I get you. I, you'd think. I mean, that those two quilts rode on my bed all the way up through my first marriage, all the way up to me and my wife got married, and it was only like 25 years ago that they stopped being the primary in the winter quilt on the bed. And my rendezvous blankets, I got Whitney blankets that go on the bed in the winter for my side. Here's a little tip, husbands out there, that might make your life a lot easier. My wife, and probably your wife too, she has a certain amount of snuggle bundle up she wants to be at. And if you're having to fight every night for the top sheet, here's the trick. Just give her the top sheet and you lay under your own blanket or whatever separate. And that's what I do. She gets the whole top sheet. I just move it off of me to that side. And I have a little light cotton blanket in the summer. I have a U.S. Army blanket that I use in the early fall. And then I got a heavy Whitney that goes over me in the winter. You know, we keep the bedroom fairly cool at night. And it makes life so much easier because they're going to just wad up everything around them and make a nest. And if you're constantly having to fight with covers, just give her that and get your own cover on top. It makes life so much easier. Do you still have the old brass frame Rebel Griswold and gun? Yes, I do. I still got old Johnny Reb. He's up in the gun case. Ooh, I hear you. I hear you, Hard, about getting a silk quilt, a sick quilt. I hear you. Always wanted to put Grey Wolf wanted to put a backing on a bear skin and a muskot's robe. Yeah, get you some good canvas or something. Even denim will work, you know, and put it to the back of it. That'll hold up fairly well. And in fact, I can remember taking deer skins and sewing them to a denim backing and making a bed cover or warm like that. We used to have, they don't do them anymore, but there used to be a baby blanket that was deer skin put side and side. So it was all one big deer skin. And you'd put babies down, let them crawl on it and stuff like that, put them up in the middle of the bed where you watch them. And the deer fur, they just like the deer fur. And it would be easy to clean in case they spit up or whatever, you know. But I can remember, you know, baby blankets that were deer fur. Dance with Empties, I hear you. I've got a 1941 Australian military issue blanket that's got 1941 on it, you know, when they made it. It's a better blanket once you go buy today, you know. I've got U.S. Army wool blanket, a couple of those, and then I've got the big old Whitney's. In fact, it's got to be bad. When we had the snowstorm back in January, I pulled out the tote with the big Whitneys. Those were all rendezvous Whitney blankets. They came in the bedroom in case we lost power. We never did. But if we lost power, me and my wife ain't going to freeze. You know, I got a fireplace and I got them big old Whitney blankets. And I've taught my wife over the years how to use a blanket to stay warm on a bed or on a cot or on the ground. And so, you know, we're going to be okay, you know. Plus, she'll have three cats laying on top of her, keeping her warm. So, hello, Mama Wendy. Oh, cool. You've been working on hides all day. Awesome. Hard hat. Oh yeah, my grandmother had little sayings. Good night, Matt. She had little sayings that she would throw out. My grandmother, if it stank, it smelled like corn. And if you surprised her with something, it was, don't say that to the preacher. You know, it was something, if something surprised her. Well, don't say that to a preacher. I don't know how that connects to the universe, but if there was a broom fell and it hit the ground, bang, and made a loud noise, made her jump, she'd spin around and say, "Well, don't say that to a preacher." I don't know where that'd come from, but it was something that she'd do if you spooked her. So, Blackie, have you received your silver play button yet? Congrats, thank you very much. Uh, Gonna be up in Slocum, Alabama. Cool. Not yet, but I did fill out the little thing on the thing. We'll see if it ever shows up. You know, um, I ain't in it for awards. I'm in it to try to share and share as much information I can with y'all. But it's nice to have, something like that to say, "Hey, I did this." So we'll see. Katie Bar the Door. I remember that one. Do you know where Katie Bar the Door comes from? It was a thing from old Scotland, and there was a prince that was going to be killed, and a rival suitor to the crown wanted to kill the prince, and the prince had been wounded and was laying in a bed in one of the towers, and the assassins were running up the steps up into the tower to kill him. And so Katie was a young girl, about 14, 15 years old, that was tending to him. The prince had a fever from his wounds. And she shut the door, and there was no bar to put in and lock it. So she jammed her arm into it. And these big men slamming into it just totally shattered and ruined her arm. But they didn't get through the door, and it saved the prince, and her arm had to be amputated. And it became a saying of when it really counts. It's like Gandalf, none shall pass. When you're going to stand in the fire, consequences be damned. You're not going through me. Katie Bar the Door. Grouch has told that story many times at events. He gives the historic documentation of all the names and things like that. And the next time I get around him, which hopefully will be like next week, I will see if he'll tell the story of Katie Bar the Door, because he knows all the ins and outs of it. Mike's Life. Thanks very much. Do you remember the oldest person that you had a connection to when you were young? When I was like 5, the oldest ladies at church were knocking on the door 100, I think. I was born real late into my family. And so I had a lot of family members in the 70s and 80s, in the 60s. So they'd been born in the 1800s. They had, Wild West was when they had been born. And, but I clearly remember a lady in the church that I would sit sometimes and talk to. And she was 97, 98. So she'd been born right after the Civil War, and a long Civil War time period. And she talked about how she remembered the first time she had ever seen a plane, first time she ever seen a power line or an electric light bulb, first time she'd ever seen a train, things like that. Have you ever eaten armadillo? I have not, but some Mexican individuals that I worked with for quite a while, they like to make chili out of them. I never have, but they love their chili made from them. So And I've smelt it when they've cooked it in the break room, so it smelled really good. I just haven't eaten it. Awesome. Bailey says to Preacher that he's got 50 on the way. Thank you very much for letting him know. That's been the holdup we've had to be able to get that in operation. Yeah, good gravy. Saying good gravy is kind of like saying icing on the cake. Something was good and this made it just that much better. Where you found out that this, yay, and then suddenly, well, good gravy. I mean, it just added a little more blessing on top of what you got lucky with. So that's how I've heard it coming up. Hard hat, I hear you. I have a cur mold, yes. Now, I was um, lucky to have got to meet a lot of these old timers that had been born in those time periods and were willing to sit and listen to me and talk to me. I just wish I could step through time now because now I could pose worthy questions to them. At that time, I didn't know. I didn't understand what to ask. I was a 5-year-old kid. Yeah, I was a little brighter than the average bear. I'm not doing that to toot my horn, but I understood and had better comprehension than someone of that age, a child of that age. But today, how I would love to step back in time and spend a day with my grandmother in the kitchen and get her to explain some of her cooking techniques because now I would understand what she's doing. I would like to spend time on the creek bank with my granddaddy talking about how to set up trot lines, how to hunt, how to read game, read tracks. I would love that. And a lot of the other old men and old women that were in my life, that Nancy and Lena and Uncle Bill and all of them, that I spent just such a short amount of time and I tried to absorb everything. But now I would know what to ask, and that's the biggest thing to me is, I have learned so much from Grouch. And the more I learn, I know better what to ask him. And I have asked him a question before and he's busted out laughing, going, well, I was wondering if he was ever going to get around to asking that, and I thought that I knew what I was doing. And suddenly he would point out, he'd open a whole new chapter I didn't even see, on whatever topic. And his knowledge is so much more than mine. And I'm spending as much time as I can with him because I want to learn everything I can from him so I can share it with y'all and hopefully preserve some of it. Uh, Mitch, you don't know if this is true, but you heard the rumor that if you eat armadillo, you're more likely to get leprosy. Armadillos do have a form of leprosy. That's how they keep their plates lubricated. But from armadillos, we discovered that 98% of the world's population is immune to leprosy. We didn't know that because we saw it a lot back in medieval days real big. That was because of inbreeding, because of limited populations, and it would spread through them. But in truth, 98% of the world's population is immune to leprosy. It's basically like an allergic reaction. We're that way. And so cooking armadillo will destroy that. And so it's safe to do. But they tried for years trying to develop a leprosy treatment, and they couldn't find a host animal to put the leprosy in, like lab rats or monkey or whatever. And they couldn't find anything until they discovered that the armadillo already had leprosy. In fact, they believed that might be where it came from originally, that certain people were allergic And therefore, once they got exposed to it, it transferred over into humans and you got leprosy. So, but cooking it destroys it. God willing, the creek don't rise was popular with the old turners out west when it questioned if they were going to go somewhere. God willing, and the creeks don't rise is from Alabama. And it was because the Creek Indians down here, when they say don't rise, they're not talking about water. They're talking about when they were leaving Georgia heading west, if the Creek Indians didn't attack, is what they're saying. So down here, we would say if the creeks don't rise, I'll be there as long as the creeks don't rise. It can also be applied to if we don't have a flood, but Creek Indians. So God willing, and the creeks don't rise is from my part of Alabama originally. And people hidden west came in and they'd say it down here. You get through there as long as God willing will let you go through and the creek don't rise up. Besides WC knives and Pathfinder knives, who are other small knife makers you would recommend that are not pricey? Of course, Mora. Condor makes a good working knife if you're looking for the traditional type knives, things like that. As far as name people of it, in the $150 range or something like that. There's several out there. There's none right off the top of the head that I'll immediately say. Because it's very much a one-to-one. Whenever I'm picking up a knife and looking at it, like the design, etc., and I'll remember it. But as far as that's where I'd go, because start with a Mora. When you think you've outgrown a Mora, go to a Condor. One of the Condor bush lures. Great knife. And there's a bushcraft knife, and there's a rat. A river rat, I think it's called. A Condor river rat. Not horribly expensive knives, like $50 to $75. Good steel, works well. When you outgrow this, then go start looking at the Pathfinder and these other companies in the $150 range. And then whenever you think you want to grow again, then go to look at a WC knife or an LT Wright or something like that. Because, you can spend a lot of money real quick on a knife. If you have the skills to warrant that, great. But it's really, buying an expensive knife doesn't guarantee you the skill. And if you're going to go through the learning curve of learning, I prefer you do it on a $25 to $50 knife. So if you screw it up, and you're going to screw up sooner or later, you do it on a cheaper knife. Once you get the skills that you really want to step up to something, then start going up. And I see it as a grade like that. Instead of, I don't want somebody to start out and I'm going to hand you a $150 knife or a $300 knife. It'd be a waste of time because you don't have the skills yet. And the argument I put out is like cell phone. Blackie runs a $75 cell phone from Walmart. It takes a picture, takes a little video, sends a text, and it does phone calls. That's all I want. I had them disable games on it. I don't even play games on the thing, because for me, that's all the skill level I've got with electronics and stuff is that. Now, my young friend, they can tell you the cosmic center of the universe with their phone because they know all of these things they can do. Yeah. I put my money into really good knives because I got the skill and I use a knife a lot. And so therefore I put the money into a really good knife. It's an investment then, just like they put $1,000 into a phone. That is just obscene to me to think that they're going to put $1,000 into a phone, but it's got the skill. They got the skills and stuff to make that phone perform. I don't. So it's a waste of time. Just like me handing them a WC knife is a waste of time because they don't have the skill level. They won't see the advantage of it. And so money would be better spent giving them a Mora and a Condor. And then when they want to really step up from that, then go to like the SRO knives or the LT Rights or several others. I just posted a video. I've got a knife coming that I'm going to do a in-depth review for Paul Christopher in the Lost Ways, because I saw it up there at Georgia Bushcraft. I think it would be a really good camp knife. And so I'm going to do an in-depth like that. And he's in like the $175, $180 range. And so that'd be a really good knife once you got skill level and you're willing to put that kind of money into a tool because you're using it. See, I'm not going to put $1,000 into a phone because Blackie don't do that stuff. I'd rather go get me a better camera for my videos than that. If I'm going to spend $500, $600, it's going to be for that. It ain't going to be for a phone. So, but I know people that says, I'm not going to spend that kind of money on a knife. And I respect that because it is an investment. If you're not in that position, don't waste your time or the money. Tim Pierce, please ask Grouch to tell his impressions of Vietnam when his first deployed and thank him for his service. I will do that. If you'll go look at the History Guy on YouTube, he did a video about Koh Tang Island. It's where they had captured an American ship and the Marines were sent in to get that ship back. Grouch was one of the Marines that went to Koh Tang Island. They were told by the Air Force, who gave them the intelligence, that it was like a platoon guarding it. It turned out to be a reinforced battalion. And Grouch was one of the guys that went in there. So Grouch is in the history books in several places. And so there's several things you can look up and find, Francis McGowan, listed Sergeant Francis McGowan. So he was he's kind of a legend in the Marine Corps. They call him Mad Mac. I'm reading fast. I'm trying to catch up. Odin Wolf knife. I have not tried that one. North Carolina Piedmont. Good evening. If I drop $1,000 on something, it's going to go bang. I understand that. Oh boy, do I understand that. No, you don't get to buy Schofields and Peacemakers from civilian marksmanship without a background check. You get 03s, M1 Garands, M1 carbines, and 1911s. And once in a blue moon, I've even heard of haven't seen them, but once in a blue moon, I've heard they had even 870s that had been military surplused out to them. So. Okay, Michael. Blackie, I have an old Italian 45 caliber Kentucky long gun. I have tried most patch thicknesses and ball sizes of different powders, everything from 20 grains to 90. Still a 12-inch group. Help me. I'm betting you got bad erosion at the end of the barrel where you load it. That's probably become very eroded and worn, either from in the past people didn't clean it properly or people beating around down the barrel from those old guns. That's very possible. And so that last half inch of barrel is kind of flaring out and acting kind of like a funnel and allowing, as the bullet gets so the gas blows out around it, and it's doing that. So you may need to, depending on how much space you got between the front, the muzzle, and the front sight, you may need to have a gunsmith cut that like half inch of barrel off and recrown it. And it was called refreshing in the past. And a lot of times that can help that. But that's probably what it is. It gets to that point, and then as the ball gets there, it's blowing out. Pick your patches up and look at them and see if they got a big burn pattern, especially to one side or whatever. And that's going to tell you that it's doing that, and it's venting right as it gets there. Instead of coming out nice and even, it's being like a rocket motor and go whoosh, and it's cavitating, and it makes it have big groups. So try that. Maybe that'll help you. Aren't those Pieta bone grips and Al Capone thing? No, actually, bone grips go all the way back. Usually the guns were sold with walnut, but you could also, and when you got in the cartridge, like the 1873 Single Action Army, they were gutta percha or hard rubber. And then you could also get ivory, bone, antler, mother of pearl. There's another one I'm forgetting, but there were all kinds of stuff back in those days that they did, and that was just a way for just a little bit more you could get fancier grips, and that was a common upgrade because all the guns looked alike, and you'd just work for 2 to 3 months saving up to buy this gun. That was 2 to 3 months wages for you to get it. And so adding another 50 cents to get a better set of grips on it or something more distinctive, so when you wore it and people could see it, that was one of the deterrents of it. And this is a follow-up from dueling, when you see the big old huge buoys and everything that was ridiculous. They're short swords, but you wore them out where people could see it. And it was like, don't mess with me, I'll hurt you. And it was a way of bragging rights and stuff like that. And so when these people would come into these social areas, they would have guns with fancy, attractive grips to attract your attention that he's armed. Don't mess with him, he's armed. And so gold grips, silver grips, Tiffany's solid silver engraved grips were such things. Sucked to shoot it, especially on a cold morning, but it attracted attention. And so a lot of these, what we consider today gaudy and oh my God, that's the exact reason they wanted it. It was to attract attention. See, plain old cowboy couldn't afford nothing fancy. He'd have plain wood grips. And if they broke, he'd make board grips to go on to it. Just carve out a hunk of a fence post and put them back on. And so that was the reason these fancy grips were out there. What do you think about Pieta using minimum parts for internals now? And I can understand why they would have to, but I'm still not a fan. I have had my most recent purchases were Pietas, and I was actually impressed with the way they looked inside, to be honest. And they have actually come up compared to the Birdies over the last 8 or 9 years. What do you think of the Walther PPK? An outstanding little pocket gun, and works very well for close range self-defense. That's one of Walther's greatest points, was how well it worked. And you could either get them in 32 or 380, and up close card table ranges 0 to 21 feet. They were more than adequate. Very slick little guns. Yeah, the military upgraded the Benelli M4, but they have to keep some of the pump action shotguns around for non-lethal riot control. That's one of the things. The pump action will function anything. And if you're shooting the sandbag rounds or the solid rubber rounds or things like that, the automatics don't do so good with that. They like to jam up. So yeah. Yes, rosewood and pewter were options. Yeah, there was all kinds of grips you could get. I've even seen ebony, which is one of the most expensive woods there is. but I have seen a 51 Navy nickel-plated original that was fully engraved and had black ebony grips on it. And all the screws were fire blued, so they're bright electric blued. And then the cleaning set that came with it in the case set had ivory handles on the screwdriver and the nipple wrench and the cleaning rod. So yeah, then put some money in it. If you had money, Colt would make it. You know. Mountain Man Hairface, breaking down a 58 difficult. Have you never done it? Any tips? Yes, go look at my video on the 58 in my percussion playlist. Go look in it. You're going to find a detailed breakdown of a 58 step by step. If I ever get a Walther PPK, it's going to be blued and take a suppressor. Yep, like James Bond. Yeah, the old German PPK was good, but the inner orange version not so good yet. It's after production. Can get 9mm smaller these days. True. Today we've got full power 9mm. You can get in that kind of package. But that don't mean that the other gun is inferior, because the 9mm would have more full power 9 NATO is going to have more boom and bam, but for the short little barrels, it really isn't outperforming the 380, the 32, and the 9 in that short barrel. In the short space we're talking, are in the same ballpark with each other. It's when you go up to the longer barrel and the full size 9, then you get better performance out of the 9 because you got more barrel to burn the powder with. But those PPKs and those small compacts, you can get a full size 9 there. But you're right at the break limit of where it starts diminishing returns if you make the barrel any shorter. So, oh, cool. You got the Company C Walker. Nice. Yes, is made ready, making your haversides. What it's doing is she's making, that's my niece, Trinity. She makes the Cordura version of my Red Hawk haversacks, as opposed to the wax canvas I have made with Jay. And this is one of Trinity's. This was the midnight one, she called it, because it was all black of the Red Hawk. The big difference is it's got a solid nylon strap, and it's got a click buckle as opposed to the loop and D-rings. But other than that, it's the same features of it. And I know she was doing a run of them. She was making them up. So, and I think I announced it a while back that if you were looking for the Cordura, she's got it. She's also exploring the idea of bringing out the Nighthawk in Cordura as well. We shall see. Oh yeah, it had a nickel-plated 49 6-shot, 5-inch barrel. Those are very collectible. Yep. Good night, Bear. Dual wheeled 61 Sheriffs. Awesome. Yeah, the Ruger GP 100 and 9mm is more powerful. Hippo. I've already said earlier, I am refunding everybody for the end of the year run because the wax canvas supplier has let us down. We don't have the canvas and it's now we've run out of time to manufacture. So I have already started refunding the money for the end of the year run. Once we get the canvas in hand, we've already paid for it, it just ain't showed up. Once we get it in hand up there at J, then we will announce and do another run. And I apologize for that, but you're at the whim of the manufacturers. You know, you go in, you pay money, they said yes, we'll deliver it on this date, and then don't show up, you know. But good news, this is the first time we've had this happen where the canvas didn't show up. So hopefully this is a one-hit wonder. Want to silver plate the trigger guard on my 49. You know, there used to be a company called Texas Plating. I'd see them a lot in Shotgun News and stuff like that. And they sold home plating kits that explained how you could do your own plating. And I had often thought about doing that, Gray Wolf, of taking like a brass frame and polish it up real good and then nickel plate it and make the whole gun nickel plated, you know. And that's what they did in the past with steel guns, was because the nickel plate was rust resistant. And so therefore I thought about doing it to make it stop looking like brass and make it look kind of like that Pieta Marshall or whatever they've got. I don't know if that's steel under there or that's a brass frame that they've done, but I've thought about many times of getting into that and doing my own plating to see about that. You see these, not today, but for a time there in the early 2000s, you saw a lot of these guys going around with these plating sets and doing the emblems on cars and stuff for people that were, you know, real fancy rides and stuff. And they would take like the standard logo and they'd gold plate it, or they'd nickel plate it, or they'd silver plate it, or whatever. And I saw a lot of these things at the higher end car places and stuff doing that sort of thing. And it's the same process, you know. And so I thought about, and I just never got around to it, but I need to get into that because I would love to do a couple of little projects in my head. Just staying groovy. Any chance you'll ever do anything up towards North Alabama? Well, actually, I may be doing some stuff up there near having a gray moment. Excuse me. Gadsden. I knew it wasn't Gainesville, but I was hung up on the G. Up there near Gadsden, and that's not far from Birmingham. So it's in the upper part of the state. And we've got a place up there that we're going to possibly be doing things, campouts, and possibly doing some classes a little later on. We will talk about that later once we got things ironed out. But we shall see. Harden, yeah, that's what I've seen it. It's the solution, and then you suspend your item into it, and you've got a power supply. You pass through it. You got little diodes you put in there, like your silver and your copper or whatever, and it just plates it. And I would be really interested. I need to get off my butt and look that up and just see about it. That, you know, that'd be something cool to do with that CVA. After I get it all polished up and done, would be like nickel plate, the frame, backstrap, trigger guard. And then have a blued barrel on it with blued hammer, blued trigger, fire blue the screws so they're bright blue. That might be an idea for that one. Yeah, I agree. Your Ice Queen, it's still going to be brass, but it looks better to me, you know. Is a badge from Dixie still legitimate? No, it doesn't give you, you know, the right to be a sheriff, but you can put them in a collection and stuff. But I know guys that do like SAS and stuff, they have marshal's badges and stuff like that. Does Grouch have any fossils? Actually, he did, but he got rid of them. He had a pair of saber-toothed cat tusks that came off of the creek that he owns 8 miles of. They every year we used to have a big camp out down there, and there was a swimming hole in the creek, which is Pigeon Creek, and we would break rock off the bottom and build up the wall to make a deeper swimming hole. And I broke a hunk of bottom off and brought it up. When I rolled it over, here was a perfect 3-toed track. I mean, like, big as my hand on each one. Rock was that big, and it was a big 3-toed track. And I thought I had a dinosaur track. And we took it to Auburn University that has the big archaeological, that type of stuff. And they looked at it and said, no, it was not a track of a dinosaur. Wrong time period. But it was the track of a terror bird, which is a big 7-foot tall ostrich with like a parrot's beak that was a meat eater and kind of replaced the velociraptors. And since we now know that birds are dinosaurs, it was just a modern dinosaur. So I was sort of right. It just was not the classic velociraptor. It's what came after, when it was the megafauna time period and they'd become birds. And I gave that to him, and he had that in his collection down there. And then him and his wife were canoeing the creek one day, and he saw something sticking out of the mud in the bank, and he dug it out, and it was a pair of saber-toothed tiger tusks, black ivory. And what had been the skull pieces obviously had been crushed, and this was the 2 tusks. And so he managed to get them. Those were documented, and he had those at one time mounted up on the thing. So, but you can't go down that creek. Everywhere you find a shallow place, you go to breaking the bottom up, and you're coming up with all kinds of the crustacean era, or it's the later, this part of Alabama. That's the reason you can't there's only 1 or 2 places in the state you can find a dinosaur, because the ground that the dinosaurs walked on is about 900 feet straight down now. This is all where the plate tectonics forced up the Smoky Mountain range, and then when it eroded down, this is where it eroded into, down here in this part of Alabama. And that's the reason we got so many rivers and streams. And it formed a different sediment rock layer. And so what we find is ocean bottom, like the hill behind my house, is an ancient coral reef. You go out there and you break up the rocks, and every one of them is just full of seashells. And down there at his land, it's that time period of the megafauna. And so it's before the KT boundary. So you find, like the saber-toothed cat, the American lion, all like that. You can find it in that layer. And then you can see the black line, and above that, you don't have any of the megafauna. So I know more information you want to know, but you sent Blackie down a rabbit hole. So, okay. What do you think about the cap and ball 57? I think you mean 58 and 45 caliber. Very effective, works very well, and will do anything a 45 ACP will do as far as hunting. So if you want a modern comparison to compare it to, heavy loaded, you're right in the bottom end of the 45 Colt. And your everyday load is very comparable to the 45 ACP, like a 1911, in actual field performance. Now, of course, modern bullets will give you an advantage after impact. But as far as actual real world, how well does it work on game and things? Just anything you can do with the 45 ACP, you can do with standard load. And the heavy loaded 45 58 will do anything that the 45 Colt will do. So that just gives you an idea. Oh, Susie Smalls, you're going to buy you a Lamat with the Trump bucks. Okay. take my advice, get a loading stand, load the cylinder off the gun, because that is the weak link of that design, is the loading lever on LeMat. It is very fragile. And when I did my review, someone loaned me a LeMat to do it. I was terrified I was going to break that loading lever off. I only loaded one cylinder with the loading lever on the gun. And then I went to reloading it off the gun after that, because that is the weak link. And a lot of the originals have the loading lever snapped off for that reason. It was a general's gun, and generals typically don't shoot a whole lot. So it looks great. I mean, then all them 45 calibers and then that 20 gauge in the middle, yeah, great. But it's one of the things, you make a lot of noise and it takes a long time to reload. So enjoy it, get it, but that's my advice. Get you a loading tool where you can load it off the gun, because I don't want you to damage your gun. And even with modern metals and everything and the modern screws, I was just sweating it that was going to bear down. It was going to just snap that screw off. Sir Malcolm, good evening. Have you done your steaming rice yet in the skillet with a locking lid? No, but I will be doing that very soon. In fact, the Dutch oven cooking video that will be coming this Sunday, while I was cooking that with the Dutch oven, I also am going to try the steaming with the new pan and everything, because I got it sitting right here. That's what that is. I'm gonna give that a try. I'm pretty sure I can do it. So we will see. In fact, that's what that's sitting there for, is getting ready to do the video for it. Oh my God. My oldest daughter went out and bought a little Great Dane puppy with blue eyes and gray white patches. I bet it's beautiful. Oh, but it won't be little for long. Oh. Hardy, the president has announced that he's giving everybody a dividend from the tariffs. And so every American that is eligible, i.e., you pay taxes, you've been filing income tax, will get $2,000 per person. If you make above, I think it's $150,000 a year, you won't get it. But anybody below $150,000 a year will get the $2,000, and they'll deposit it directly in your account like they do a income tax return. That's what he said. So I already told my wife, you got $2,000 coming for you and $2,000 for me. Don't be looking at mine. I'm not going to be looking at yours. So you be thinking what you want to get, baby. It's all you, honey. But don't say, oh, but, I love you, but, we're not, what's mine is mine, and what's half of yours is mine. We ain't doing that, baby. I kid my wife, but she ain't like that, guys. I mean, she pushes me to do my own stuff, and I'm really lucky and blessed to have her, because she has, this weekend, the 15th, will be our 35th wedding anniversary. And she has put up with Blackie and his harebrained adventures. She's in the league for sainthood, I'll put it that way. Dance with Empties, I hear you. Got yourself a Whitney #2 Navy model. Really fully understand Colt's marketing an inferior pistol. Well, Colt was the first, and the Whitney is really, everybody that I did the story talking about where the Whitney came from was Colt got the Walker contract and he didn't have a factory, so he went to Whitney and he got Whitney to build the Walker, and he got the tooling and everything. And then he left and built his own factory and took that tooling. And with the leftover Walker parts, they made the Whitneyville Walker. And that was the replacement. So remember we talked about how many of the Walkers burst and stuff like that? Well, they didn't replace them with the Walker. They replaced them with the Whitneys or the first model, you know. And so Colt went to manufacturing the first, second, third, etc. Then they brought out the Baby Dragoon and the 51 Navy. This kind of fell in line with his earlier Patterson models of a self-defense and a belt model, right? And he went gangbusters, and it became the thing, you know. And Whitney, the manufacturer, looked around and said, hey, didn't we make something like this? Yeah, we made the Walker. Can we make something like that? And Beals, who was a designer for Whitney, created the Whitney design using the Colt lockwork. He just changed a couple of things to get around the patent and used a solid frame and made the Whitney design. Okay, that was the Whitney. That was the chief competitor to the 51 Navy in the gold fields and out west in the early 1850s. That was the two choices. Beals then left Whitney and went into his own business and made his own revolver called a Beals. Remington, who had deep pockets, said, hey, we want in on this. Remington was a rifle company. They didn't make any handguns. And so they bought in with Beals and made the Remington Beals. That evolved to become the Remington Army, and that evolved to become the 58 Remington we think of. So all of those were Beals designs. And whenever the Confederacy got going, they had a contract to make copies of the 51 Navy, but what this guy got a hold of was stuff to make copies of the Whitney. And so that became the Spiller and Burr. And so, see, so Beal design, basically the Spiller and Burr, and the Whitney, and the Remington Beals, and the Remington old model, and the Remington new model. And there are some who claim that there was some influence, how severe, I don't know, in the Rogers and Spencer, which was the last percussion revolver adopted by the military. So, you know, the guy you never heard of, Beals, who designed everybody, all the competition to a Colt, was designed by Beals. I agree. If they have said from the beginning they want to eliminate income tax because the money gathered by income tax equals the budget of the IRS. If you eliminated the IRS and you eliminated income tax, we wouldn't change anything. The government doesn't make their money. Now that he's implemented a tariff-based, and they say, well, it don't work. The hell it don't. You know, he's going to take and give everybody a dividend of $2,000, and he's going to take that remaining money and put it toward the deficit. I think they're talking about $610 billion, you know, in 1 year that we've generated. It don't work. In 1 year, $610 billion has been generated. We didn't have to do a damn thing but collect it. Tell me that isn't brilliant. So Whitney was the original. Whitney, absolutely. Whitney was a industrial complex that you needed a new hair curler. Whitney would make it. I need an incubator for chickens built. You had to design, Whitney had built it. He had talented people, machinists, sheet metal workers, riveters, all kinds of stuff, and you brought him a design, he'd make what you wanted. That was what he did. And so that's the reason Colt went to him, because he had the people that could make the Walker, you know, and then he got them to make the tooling and the machinery. And then part of the deal was he got that material to go build his own factory. See, that was the hard part, making the machinery and the jigs and stuff to do it. And it would have taken 5 years for Colt to build the Walker if he had to start from scratch, get his own machinist, create the dies and everything else and all the jigs. He could just go to Whitney and poof, you know, they got the people. You just give them a design, they'll make it. It's like today, you bring in a design and you hand it off to somebody with a CNC machine. and they can make it. Our master machinists today, you go in, here's the design, they can make it. You know, the hard part is designing it, technically. So, Washburn Billy, $33 trillion in debt right now. That's true. But this is the first time we've had a surplus money to put to it. You know, we're about to put, I think he was talking about over $500 billion toward the deficit in 1 year. At present rate, we'll pay off that $33 trillion in less than 12 years. No other form can even touch how to pay that off. You know, I voted for Ronald Reagan. But what Ronald Reagan did was he pulled a bunch of money out of Social Security to fund Star Wars, which was his space defense initiative, and put a 30-year IOU. Well, that was 1980. That was due by 2010. The government never paid a dime back. So they owe Social Security right now $4 trillion. How are they going to pay for it? Can't tax us for it. So they just took that money and did it. So tariffs is the way to go. And it powered the world for 100 years, 200 years. And then they got out of it because of World War II and stuff like that. And time to bring it back. Obviously, it works. So, and gets jobs here. That's what I'm interested in, get jobs here. Well, guys, that's 2 hours. And I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole on politics. Blackie doesn't want to talk politics on his channel. But, guys, thank y'all so much. I've really enjoyed this. I will be back on next Thursday night. And I hope y'all are going to enjoy the videos that are coming, because I got several good ones coming up. So, have a great weekend. Get ready for the coming holiday for Thanksgiving. I hope everybody's safe. Have a blessed week. And I'll see you next weekend. Till next time, guys. And Blackie saying, safe journeys. Have a great night, guys.